Hey guys, my talk is titled Awesome Payments. Before we dig in, first my background. I'm Bob. I spent the last 10 years in payments. First in traditional payments, investing in fintech and payment platforms. Then at Strike, working on Bitcoin and Lightning payments. And now as the founder of Boardwalk, focused on using Nostr and eCash to advance Bitcoin payments. And I'm going to talk today about awesome payments in three very fast-growing markets: social media, generative AI, and stablecoins. I'm going to describe how eCash helps us capture these markets and enable awesome payments with Bitcoin. Awesome payments are more than just simple payments like paying for a coffee or making a purchase online. They need to be awesome. They need to be incredibly fast, highly scalable, programmable, and much more, which I'll talk about today. And this is important because I believe awesome payments is how we onboard the next billion Bitcoiners. And I believe that Bitcoin payments is the only way to enable these markets in the future. But first, let's start with awesome consumer products. These are the three biggest internet consumer platforms of the last 30 years: the internet browser, the smartphone, and AI. And they all have created incredible consumer products. However, for much of the history of the internet, monetization and consumer payments has been ad-driven. So the internet payments experience looks like this. These are display ads. Or like this, ads and feeds. Or like this, ads pop out of nowhere and you can't figure out how to close. But fortunately, there's been a huge shift in online payments over the last 5 years, and the internet is now monetizing more than just ads. Each of these payment platforms has undergone a huge change in the way payments are distributed, and there's now an opportunity across all three to create better payments. Global payments are actually happening on the internet rails. Social consumer P2P payments are happening on mobile, and AI payments are just growing really, really fast. So I'm going to talk about each of these opportunities and how we can use them to create awesome payment experiences with eCash and Bitcoin. We'll start with social peer-to-peer payments. This graph is TikTok's payment volume of tips and gifts sent peer-to-peer over the last 5 years. They did less than $1 billion of payment volume in 2020. And next year, they're expected to do more than $9 billion of payment volume across their 1 billion users. And this is just TikTok. Combined with other social platforms, there's well over $10 billion of peer-to-peer payment volume expected next year. TikTok social P2P payments are gifts that users send to other creators or other users. There are roughly 120 fixed value gifts. Users buy coins that they purchase on their phone with Apple Pay, and creators receive diamonds that they can cash out to their bank account. The gifts range anywhere from 1 cent on the lower end, if I send you a rose, or upward of $450 in value on the upper end. And they're shared in live videos between fans and creators. And it's a huge revenue driver for TikTok. They actually take a 50% take rate. And so not only is it a huge payment volume driver, it's a huge revenue driver. And they do an amazing job. It's highly gamified. You can set goals. So if you want to receive, in this example, the creator wanted to receive 1,000 gorillas, they have 4 hours to get 1,000 gorillas. There's leaderboards by type of gift. There's leaderboards by how much gifts you have received and sent. They have exclusive gifts. They have badges for you when you send certain gifts. There's levels, so you can level up and receive and unlock even more gifts. And then finally, there's rewards. So if you are in the top receivers of gifts, they'll give you bonus rewards in gifts. So they really do an amazing job, and that's why the growth has been incredible in the last 5 years. Of course, it's not just TikTok. On Nostr, you're seeing the growth of Zaps. Facebook and X are also experimenting with their own versions of P2P payments. So social P2P payments is a massive and growing opportunity for us. Next is AI payments. This graph is OpenAI's consumer payment volume over the last 5 years. It went from 0 in 2022, so 2 years ago, it was 0. They'll do almost $3 billion of payment volume this year across 200 million users, and they're expected to do more than $10 billion of payment volume next year across almost 500 million users. This is just an insane graph. But today, AI payments looks like this. You pay $20 a month to OpenAI, who processes the payment via Stripe and the traditional card networks. But there's almost no way, if AI does what we think it's going to do, this is how payments will work in the future. There's zero chance. Very soon, it might look like this. So this is an AI agent. And an AI agent has no ID, and they have no bank account. And there will be hundreds or thousands or millions of them. And these agents will need to acquire certain resources. They'll need to acquire data, training, inference, compute, pay for other tasks. And these agents will need to pay other agents directly, who will need to pay other agents, who will need to pay other agents to accomplish their task. And so these payments, they need to be instant, cash-like, programmable payments. These are computers paying computers. These payments are expected to happen on a truly unprecedented scale. So this here is a graph of spending on cloud CapEx by the big four: Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta. They increased CapEx spending $70 billion this year, and they'll do over $200 billion of CapEx spending next year and likely every year in the future. This is an outstanding number. To give you a sense of scale, that is the spend equal to the market cap of the 37th most valuable company in the S&P 500. So the 37th most valuable company's market cap is equal to the size of that spend, which is McDonald's. So these companies are now spending a McDonald's amount of cash every single year on cloud and AI infrastructure. But it gets crazier. In the US, we're restarting nuclear power plants to make AGI a reality. In the latest deal, Microsoft will be helping restart reactors at 3 Mile Island, and each reactor costs about $10 billion a pop. So we're spending $200 billion annually plus $10 billion on every new reactor. This means that there's likely trillions of dollars of payment volume expected in the future, and it's a huge opportunity for us. And finally, stablecoins. So this graph here is estimated stablecoin volume. It's kind of hard to estimate, but I think it's pretty clear that there's certainly at least 50 million users globally that have used stablecoins, and the volume is somewhere between, say, $5 and $10 billion this year or next year. And it really, really accelerated starting in 2022. So it was almost nothing before 2020. And now it'll be easily $10 billion next year or the following. Stablecoins provide stable value. This is especially important in economies that have poor currencies. So on the chart on the left, you'll see consumer crypto volume in Argentina. 58% of the exchange volume was stablecoins. And on the right is the greater Latin American region, so Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. And even there, still 30% of consumer exchange volume was stablecoins. And you can see why they prefer stablecoins in Argentina. The peso lost 63% of its value year over year. And unfortunately, Bitcoin's not very stable. So Bitcoin itself lost at least 1% of its value 105 days over the past year. So Bitcoin is still too volatile for this use case as well. And people don't like volatility. I think it's helpful to walk through a couple of examples of why stable value is really important in some of these markets. First, the remittance example. The example here is a domestic worker receiving his salary. He uses that to buy a stablecoin. He sends that as a remittance to a foreign family member who is then able to use that stablecoin to buy goods and food. That whole process, that takes about 1 to 3 days. So any 1% change in the value of a coin would be detrimental. And these people, they're not like speculators or risk takers. They don't want to take volatility risk. They just want to buy a fixed basket of goods, and they need stable value to do it every week. So very simple. So stable value for them is valuable. And now we'll look at another example, which is merchants. You can see here we have a consumer buying food from a merchant. They check out, they pay with stable coins, and then the merchant accumulates these stable coins and uses them to pay their employees and restock their shelves. That process takes anywhere from 5 to 30 days, and merchants operate, especially grocery stores, on a really, really thin margin. So a 1% move can wipe out a merchant in a day or in a month. And even the best grocery stores operate about 1.5% margin, which is Kroger's margin. So these merchants, they're not risk takers or speculators either. So stable value is mission critical for them. They can't afford volatility. And this is one of the reasons why you've seen stablecoin volume explode over the past 5 years. It's also a huge opportunity for us. So now across social, AI, and stablecoins, there's at least $100 billion of new consumer payment volume coming online in the next 5 years. And this payment volume is distributed, consumer-driven, advanced technology-based payment volume. And it needs payment technology that can facilitate transfer of value. And these new products, they touch on some of the most important aspects of our lives. Free speech, actually open AI, and global payments. Traditional payments, the rails, they don't work well. They're slow, they're expensive, there's high fraud. Traditional payments need decentralized because they require massive teams, human intervention, legal arbitration. But we can do better. We have internet native money. So how would we design internet native money for payments specifically, for these specific markets? What would that look like, and what would the important features be? So now I'm going to walk through some of the key features of how we should design internet money for payments specifically. Internet money for payments would have instant access. It would be permissionless. It would be virtually free to use. There would be no information required. It would be fast. There would be no chargebacks. It would settle instantly. It would be highly scalable. It would be everywhere. So it would work globally, but also it would work anywhere, including offline. It would be programmable. You'd be able to send multi-party payments, conditional payments, and more. It would be multi-currency. You wouldn't have to take FX volatility if you didn't want to. It would be private. Both amounts, senders, and receivers would have privacy. It would be liquid, so it would be easily exchangeable in any market. And it would be trustless. So you'd be taking no counterparty risk. So this is the rough rubric for grading the success of an internet-based money for payments. Fortunately, we have internet money, we have Bitcoin, and we have Lightning. So let's start by seeing if these protocols will work for these new awesome payments. First, we'll do Bitcoin on-chain. Bitcoin on-chain is not instant. We know it takes about a 10-minute block time, and you need a Bitcoin on-chain address. It's not fast, again, 10-minute block time. It's not fast enough, certainly for these markets. It doesn't work everywhere. It's global, yes, but it doesn't work to send offline. Its programmability is very limited today. It's not multi-currency. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. It's not private. It's relatively limited. It's a public blockchain. But it is liquid. So you can trade Bitcoin anywhere on hundreds of exchanges in any country in the world. And of course, it is trustless. And this is one of the most important aspects as Bitcoin as money. But in the context of internet payments for these use cases, it's not great. It fails as internet money for advanced payments. And so now we'll do Lightning. Does Lightning provide instant access? No, you need liquidity, you need to KYC if it's custodial, and then once you do, you still need a payment identifier. You need to tell the person where to send the money to. Is it fast? It's faster and improves on things like paying for coffee, but you can't send hundreds or thousands or millions of payments in 1 second on Lightning. It's not fast enough for the use cases that we're talking about, for these new markets. It works globally, just like Bitcoin, but again, you can't send offline. It's more programmable, but still pretty limited today. It's getting to be multi-currency. So there is taproot assets, but today it's not, so I'll mark that as an X as well. Private, there are improvements to privacy on using Lightning, and of course it is improving, but it's not private enough, and certainly not if you're using custodial Lightning. And then this is an important point. It is liquid because you can exit to the main chain. You can trade Bitcoin. So it is tradable everywhere in the world because Bitcoin is the base layer. And then similarly, it's sufficiently trust minimized because you can exit to the main chain. So this is what Lightning looks like. And if we combine Bitcoin on-chain and Lightning, you can see we know Lightning has improved Bitcoin payments, but not for the specific markets we're talking about today. For the next generation of consumer products, it's not enough alone. So for these new markets, Lightning has limited improvement in capabilities. And so now we get to do eCash. Does eCash provide instant access? Yes, it's a bearer message. Is it fast? Yes, you can send thousands of payments instantly. Does it work everywhere? Yes, it works globally and it works offline. Is it programmable? Yes, you can do things like multi-party payments, pay to pub key, and eventually conditional payments. Is it multi-currency? It already is today in Bitcoin, dollars, and euro, with more coming soon. Is it private? Yes, it uses blinded tokens, and in fact, there are no users or accounts. And then these last 2 points are very important. Is it liquid? It is liquid because it's convertible down into Lightning, which is convertible down into Bitcoin. So you can exit to Lightning and exit to Bitcoin. Similarly, is it trustless? We all know holding eCash is custodial, but at the point of sale, when we're talking about payments, it is trustless because it's interoperable with Lightning at that point of sale, and you can exit to Lightning, which you can exit to Bitcoin main chain. So at the point of sale, it is a trustless transaction. You don't have to give someone the good or service unless you trust the payment. So this is eCash. And now, if we combine it with Bitcoin and Lightning, the combination of Bitcoin, Lightning, and eCash is an awesome payment system. And this is an extremely important point. It needs to be all three. It has to be Bitcoin, Lightning, and eCash. eCash does not stand alone. And importantly, when one of these gets better, they all get better. So now we have the tools to go after this $100 billion of payment volume and $1 billion new users market. And awesome payments is how we onboard that next billion Bitcoiners. So now I would like to show the early ways that Boardwalk and eCash more generally is going after these new fast-growing markets. First, a quick overview of Boardwalk. Boardwalk is a Bitcoin payments platform that integrates eCash and Nostr. We're using eCash because we believe it's the best payment experience for these advanced markets that we're talking about today. So I'm going to show how we're using eCash to serve these markets social, generative AI, and stablecoins, and accelerate Bitcoin payment adoption. We'll start with social peer-to-peer payments, which is this graph. So $10 billion plus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at two of the most important features of each of these markets, and then talk about how eCash improves the payment experience. So for social peer-to-peer payments, we're going to talk about instant access and multi-currency. And this is our example gift, the Bitcoin guy. eCash provides instant access. It's a bearer message. So you can send eCash money in the message on any social media or messaging platform. There's no identifier required, so you don't need to know my handle, or you don't need me to send you an invoice. You can just send me eCash without ever asking me for anything. There's no liquidity required, so there's no like sender or receiver liquidity. You don't have to worry about payments failing. It just works. And then finally, it's cross-platform. So on the top there is a eCash token. That's a pumpkin. That's posted on Twitter. At the bottom here, that's a teddy bear eCash token posted on Nostr. It works cross-platform. So this is an ideal experience for creators and peer-to-peer payments. One account that works across the internet with no platforms controlling the on and the off ramps. And then multi-currency. So most users just want to use their own currency. Some want Bitcoin, most want dollars or euro or their local currency, and we can provide that to them with eCash, and that's what we've done at Boardwalk. We currently have two balances, both Bitcoin and dollars in the app. Okay, AI payments. So this is one I'm really excited to talk about, and that's why. So AI payments, they need to be fast, and they need to be programmable. These are computers paying computers. First is locked eCash. So this is one of the simplest forms of programmability and already used in almost every wallet in the cashew space. It's also known as pay to pub key. This is where you can lock eCash to a specific pub key, and only the user with the corresponding private key can unlock the eCash. So this is the kind of first and simplest form of programmability. But that allows you to already do some pretty cool things. So that allows you to do things like split payments. So here we have the AI agent paying R2D2 and Bender at the same exact time, instantly. And this works whether you're paying these two agents or 1,000 agents. But it's still early for agents. So I wanted to show an example of how we're using split payments actually today. We're currently working with independent designers that are using GIFs to help monetize their art. So for this example, a user can share this hermit crab gift on Boardwalk, and we can instantly split, of the 5,000 sats they send, 4,000 can go to the recipient they're sending it to, and 1,000 sats can instantly be split and deposited in the artist's account, and that can happen automatically every time. And then finally, conditional payments is early, but you can imagine the Mint providing Oracle services and processing DLCs. There's no additional trust required. You're already trusting the Mint with the strongest form of trust. They have your money. And so they are able to process additional services on top of that. And conditional payments allows AI payments it will allow them to be made based on the type and quality of information returned by agents. And then it also enables other interesting markets like betting and futures contracts, which could also be integrated into that system. Next is fast. So eCash is a database. That's great. It enables millions of payments to be sent at the same time with no blockchains, no consensus, no hops, no rebalancing. One example of what's possible is a very powerful example Callie shared a few months ago, and I wanted to walk through it. In this example, a user wants to pay a VPN service per kilobyte of use instead of with a monthly subscription. So it starts with the user paying 10,000 sats via Lightning to a Mint and receiving back 10,000 1-sat tokens that's locked to the VPN provider's public key. Now the user has these tokens and can stream the tokens to the VPN provider for every kilobyte of data that they use. The VPN provider is able to check the incoming token signature, and they know it can't be double spent because it's locked to them. And at the end of the week, the VPN service is able to unlock the cash and redeem the Bitcoin. And this is the crazy part in that example. In that payment flow between the user and the VPN service, there was no mint, there was no Lightning, and there was no Bitcoin. So no mint is even needed to be involved in that payment flow. The mint just is involved at the beginning to lock the eCash and at the end. So 2 Lightning payments and potentially millions of payments between the user and service. And this is one example of what's possible, and it's very unique to eCash specifically and can be highly, highly scalable. And finally, stablecoins. This, which is this graph. So 2 of the most important aspects of stablecoins is they need to work everywhere and they need to be liquid. Everywhere is actually, it's pretty simple. They have to work globally. They need to work offline to receive money, and they need to work offline to send money. So when you go to a market on a Caribbean island that has no internet, you can still buy your groceries. And they need to be liquid. So like I mentioned, eCash doesn't work without Bitcoin and Lightning. And this, I think, is one of the most obvious examples. With eCash, you get the Bitcoin network effect. So we don't need to go rebuild exchanges and payment rails from scratch. eCash gets the full benefit of the Bitcoin network effect. So let's walk through an example with Boardwalk. In this example, a Boardwalk user in the US sends money to his friend in Mexico. And to do that, he first loads $100 via himself, an agent, or an exchange into his Boardwalk wallet. So he has $100 of eCash in Boardwalk in the US. He's able to instantly send that money as Mexican pesos received in his friend's Boardwalk account in Mexico. So the friend in Mexico receives 1,900 Mexican pesos instantly in Boardwalk in Mexico with no volatility in exchange. The friend can then go to a Bitcoin agent or a Bitcoin exchange and receive 1,900 pesos in cold hard cash in his hand. And this is leveraging the fact that there are already Bitcoin agents and exchanges in virtually every market in the world. And importantly, the friend in Mexico just receives and uses pesos. He has 1,900 pesos in his Boardwalk account, and then he gets 1,900 pesos of cash in his hand. There's no volatility. There's no exchange rate involved. There's no dollars. There's no Bitcoin. He just gets pesos into Boardwalk and then pesos into his hand. And for the Bitcoin exchange, it's just Bitcoin to them. So this is the powerful aspect of the network effect, is the exchange doesn't need to know anything about Boardwalk. They don't have to know anything about Cashew. They don't have to know anything about mints, and they don't have to know anything about the user. They're just taking in Bitcoin and exchanging it for pesos like they do every day. And this can be done well below half the cost of traditional remittances. The fee is just the fee to buy and sell Bitcoin, which can be anywhere from 1% to 3%, versus a traditional cost of remittances, which can be well over 10%. And it works for not just remittances, but for the merchants' use cases as well. So that's how we build awesome payments. And I think that's how we capture the next billion Bitcoiners. We build cross-platform social payments, the monetization layer of generative AI, and stable value on top of Bitcoin liquidity. And so how do we accelerate that? How do we get there a lot faster? We'll walk through a couple examples here. The first is we need more mints. So you can go on Bitcoin mints and you can see there's roughly 20 public mints. But we need bigger, more scaled, and trusted mints. And importantly, we need more distributed mints. We have to make it really, really easy for anyone to run their own mint privately and simply. We need more multi-currency mints. We have dollars, euros, and Bitcoin today, but we need more currencies, especially in the remittance corridors, like the example I walked through. We need more on-ramps. Mints currently only accept Lightning, but most of the on-ramps are on-chain Bitcoin. And so we need more mints accepting on-chain, and we need more exchanges accepting Lightning. And this is, I think, one of the largest unlocks for eCash. It needs to be this easy for you to use eCash. You should be able to use Apple Pay and load your eCash wallet. And finally, we have to build awesome products. This is what we're doing at Boardwalk. And this is what we're all doing in this room and really why we're all here. And it's early, but I think we have the opportunity to build something very special for the world and power the payments infrastructure for the next generation of these consumer products. Thank you.
Can you maybe explain how stablecoin works? Because one of the use cases is stablecoins, but if I have an eCash denominated in dollars, so how does the mint behave? Like, what's the underlying asset there?
Yeah, so you could do it a few different ways. So there's two ways that I've seen. One is sort of the simplest way is you just take the Bitcoin in, you convert it to the currency, and you put it in a bank account. So you would just be receiving Lightning. As soon as you receive the Bitcoin in, you sell the Bitcoin for dollars, and you just hold dollars. So in that case, it's always stable, and you're always pegged one-to-one with dollars. There's also the concept of stable channels, and so that is where you're posting collateral in a Lightning channel, and it updates based on movements in exchange rate. So those are the two that have gotten the most traction. I think those are the two ways, the few mints that have both dollars and Bitcoin. I think that's how they work today.
But the first approach, it doesn't have this liquidity requirement or advantage, right? Because once I have put my money on an exchange and the exchange says this is no longer yours, then I have lost liquidity.
Right, you're trusting that custodial mint. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And about the stable channel, is that how it's called? Like.
It's called stable channels, and you're always trusting the mint. So unless I think there's some cool ideas around of how to minimize that trust, but today it's like 100% custodial. So whether it's a stable channel or you're holding money in a U.S. bank account, like you're trusting the mint to operate.
Yes, but there is a difference because if the mint is holding money in a bank account, I'm not trusting only the mint. I'm also trusting their bank.
The bank, yeah. And in the stable channels, you're trusting the mint, and then you're trusting the underlying technology of stable channels that it's working appropriately. Yeah, there's lots of trust required. It is custodial. Yeah.
Thanks.
Good point.
Hey, you mentioned that one of the things that we can do is make it as easy as possible for anyone to run and spin up a mint. Have you thought about the implications that might have on deteriorating what could be like the quality of the network? If you make it so easy that somebody who maybe isn't technically capable, maybe an Umbrel user or a hobbyist, just spins up a node and then they don't keep up with it, they're not able to troubleshoot it, this node could potentially be custodying users' funds. So that's different than just spinning up your own Noster relay. There's less of a risk to other people. So I guess my question is, do you worry that by making it super easy for anyone to spin up a mint, it could at this stage make the quality of the eCash networks feel less reliable, less robust, because these low quality mints could be spinning up that people don't have the ability to maintain or troubleshoot?
Yes, for sure. And that's a great point. We actually, at Boardwalk, spent about 2 months building software to allow people to easily run a mint on their own. And we ended up not ever announcing it or launching it because of that exact reason. In like testing, like, I don't know, my internet went out of my house and then like my mint didn't work, right? And so the technology to make it that simple, I think, is not yet there. It will get there. So there's a ton of really interesting things people are working on to ensure that the mint doesn't go down. So I think that's one. Yes, we thought a lot about that. I think there's a lot of really interesting ways it can be done, but we're like not exactly there yet from a technical standpoint. The second point is you can the Cashew protocol is working on authentication, and so you can and will be able to soon have a mint just remain private. So if it was like me and my friend that wanted to use the mint, it could just be the two of us. It wouldn't like get posted on bitcoinmints.com, and even if it did, you wouldn't be able to access it. And so in that way, it will limit having some like 1,000 people come on your mint, all of a sudden like overloading your Lightning node. You can just limit it to people that you know. Yeah. But that's like the mint piece is the distributed mint piece specifically is a huge unlock, I think.
Hi, thank you for this very insightful presentation. And I was wondering, do you know of any regulatory challenges around running a mint?
It's still really early, so yes, there probably are, and they need to be figured out. The depends on the jurisdiction, and then it depends on this technology that I talked about that we need to build. It depends how that's built, and that's why it's crucial we do it in a very distributed, private way. Yeah, but it's like completely like early. So yes, the answer is like yes. There are like a bunch of things you got to think through, but I don't think anyone's.
Do you know of an expert in this field currently, or someone that's very good to talk to regarding this?
Yeah, there might be people.
So you've I mean, as everybody stresses, right, that eCash is custodial. I'm wondering what the implications are when the context shifts in the way you're suggesting it probably will. So, you know, away from Bitcoin nerds who I would guess, I don't think this is that controversial, you know, usually the amounts are quite small and usually they're doing it for ideological reasons. Mm-hmm. If it goes to tens of billions of dollars of payments flow, the reasons are clearly commercial, the amounts are clearly pretty big.
Yeah.
That then, you know, it's not just like, oh yeah, okay, it's custodial, that's fine. It becomes like a massive financing question. That risk needs to be financed. So very open-endedly, do you just have any thoughts about how that's likely to happen? And maybe more interestingly, are there technical implications for Lightning about, or yeah, maybe Bitcoin on chain about how to allow for financing that?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the point I made about it's not eCash alone. Like eCash needs Lightning needs Bitcoin, and when one gets better, they all get better. And so Lightning absolutely has to get better if this like AI payments reality is going to happen. eCash gets you scale, gets you 100x, 1000x, I don't know, 10,000x scale. But we ultimately need Lightning to also improve in order for that to happen. I think what ends up happening is potentially it really depends on like the mint and how the mint ecosystem evolves. And so you potentially have like either like larger mints that are run by service providers, larger mints that are run by well-known Lightning providers that can provide that Lightning infrastructure to run on. Is how it eventually evolves. I don't think it's like, you know, me or you in our house like running our Lightning node, like powering like $10 million of AI payments. Maybe the remittance use case, that's how it works, and that could like really scale and be really powerful. But for a single company running millions of dollars of payments every day, it's going to need a scaled Lightning custodian. So probably larger Lightning custodians or providers like Lightspark or Strike would have that infrastructure as well that they could offer mints or offer service providers to do that for them. But I think the like actually running a really like large, well-known, trusted mint is a huge opportunity. I mean, take a look at the stablecoin guys and the stablecoin custodians, and like Tether made $10 billion in the first 6 months of this year. Like that's insane. Stablecoins should be on Bitcoin for all the reasons I talked about, and whoever can unlock that using eCash has an enormous revenue opportunity.
Just a comment, actually, Bob. I think the key point in your presentation was when you assumed that we need on-ramps for that. So the real crucial thing to escape the regulatory and political capture is to remove the on-ramp element, which requires that Bitcoin stabilizes, which you mentioned, explained to everybody here, is not really very good when you try to spend Bitcoin at merchants.
Yeah, I'm actually excited about like the potential for more decentralized trading of Bitcoin on chain. Of Bitcoin not on chain. So whether that's using potentially eCash to do it, but that's like one area I think about all the time. But I have no idea what the answer is of how we do more decentralized Bitcoin trading, other than like what people proposed 10 years ago, which hasn't really scaled at all. But I think that's like a big unlock. If you don't need to use Apple Pay, and you can do it, the like, UX has to be good though. But Apple Pay is like amazing. Everyone knows how to use it. It's really good. Ideally, we can figure out a way to integrate that first, and then longer term, I think there are more advanced technical solutions to figure out how to do decentralized Bitcoin trading without on-ramp providers.
That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you. I just want to make a comment on also the previous question asked. I think it's useful to think of eCash system not specifically as global payment system where each mint needs to be able to serve everyone's use case at all times. When you remove that assumption, you can see many more realistic use cases today, also in line with our understanding of the regulatory frameworks around us, meaning that you can imagine an AI company running a very specific mint for only very specific task, and their requirements are, for example, scaling in that case, and they want to be able to unlock that insane scale. So, the TikTok example that you gave is also, I think, very informative. You can buy these magic shitcoins tokens there. This is probably a MySQL database in the background, and in this case, I'm specifically not sure, but I don't assume that TikTok applied for an e-money transmission license for enabling, small gift feature inside their application. So I think, when you start putting things into a smaller context and smaller context, then you can see way more clear how you can get forward with this without risking too much.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's like very specific, you don't need like the mint that runs everything and all these use cases and works for every company. Like you can get very, very specific into specific use cases, and leveraging you can pick one feature of eCash like really fast, and it could be one service provider that's just doing something really fast, but gets the benefit of having the Bitcoin network effect. And like all the benefits of paying with Bitcoin, like there's no fraud and no chargebacks, which is like really big. Even for like the TikTok example, they still have like a ton of fraud that they have to manage, and they have like a massive payments team that works everywhere globally with every single payment method. And if they used Bitcoin and they used eCash, they wouldn't need any of that because it would all happen programmatically with no fraud. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.